Hello and welcome back to Moms of Truth with Jodi and Ruby. Today I had a question come in, and this mother touches on a subject I have wanted to talk about for a very long time, and that is the topic of privacy and children. Do children have privacy? Is privacy a principle of truth? If so, how do I gauge the privacy of my child? How much do I give them? Is privacy something that I can give my child? These are all topics that come up in this question. And let me tell you, this mom who wrote this question is awake. Good job. I was reading it and I was like, good job. I just love hearing that there are mothers out there who are awake, who are aware, they're not pandering to their children. They aren't trying to be their children's friend. They aren't intimidated to hold boundaries. It is truth in this house. And this mother does a fantastic job. So she starts off by saying, hello, ladies. I am posting today in an attempt to find support for my 14-year-old daughter. 14. So she's going into 9th grade. Bear with me as this gets a little bit choppy. My daughter and I are cleaning her room together, and I was helping her organize some of her belongings into boxes for our upcoming move. At one point, I came across a small black journal, buried, or in all caps, buried, obviously very concealed from my viewing. I had never seen this item before, and I was genuinely confused when I held it up and questioned my daughter. Almost immediately after seeing it, my daughter's face went pale. Okay, so I want you to hear how this mom takes notice of her daughter's reaction. This mom is really awake. She says her face went pale. She basically threw herself over my lap. So the daughter's pale. She's throwing herself in an attempt to snatch the journal from my hand. So the daughter went into a flurry of control. This 14-year-old daughter lost all the blood in her face, went into fear. She threw herself across the room into her mom's lap, trying to snatch this journal. She obviously does not want the mother to have this journal. I withheld it from her as her behavior gave me a massive pause. Right there. That is so fantastic that you caught that so quickly. Your daughter flying into a flurry of fear did not cause you to go into fear. How many times do our children go into massive hysteria and we, the parents, go into it with them? Not this mom. This mom stood her ground and went, this is giving me pause here. This is off. So excellent job. My daughter was sweating, her eyes welled up with tears, and I could clearly tell this was a big deal for her. I began to get curious. Okay, so not only does the mom recognize something is off here, but then watch what the mom does with this. I got curious. I said things like, you are not reacting respectfully. So the mom is reflecting to the daughter what she just saw. So you'll hear Jodi and I say often, you need to reflect truth to your child. Instead of the mom going into distortion, going, what's in the journal? What's in the journal? Or saying, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to upset you. I can see that you're upset and give the journal back. Both of those would have been in massive distortion. The mom stays very grounded and she reflects, hey, you're acting off here. You're acting funny. She says, you're not acting respectfully. I want to discuss this. We can do so when you're willing to behave in truth. So now the mom has reflected truth, and now she's setting a boundary. She's saying, I'll talk about this with you when you're in truth. You're hysterical right now. I'm not going to discuss this with you when you're hysterical. That is a beautiful boundary. And she says, that means you are not yelling. So then she goes into describing what this boundary looks like. That means you are not yelling or invading my personal space. And then she asks her question, why was this hiding from me? So this mom goes into a lot of curiosity. She's asking lots of questions. Notice how the mom doesn't go into blaming. Notice how this mom doesn't go into pointing fingers and accusing. She doesn't go into storytelling. And you'll see later in this question, the daughter's given reason for the mom to go into blaming or storytelling, and yet the mom doesn't. Now, even if your child has never given reason for you to pause, this is still a truthful show up. You still hold the child accountable for this off, controlling response. This mother says, as you can imagine, I felt confused in the moment, and I feel the same way now. I have not read the journal. My daughter has been consistently hunting for control in this situation over the last few hours. Everything from verbally manipulating, saying things like, you're invading my space, or those are my personal feelings, to crying, she's pretending to vomit, and I even caught her snooping around and sending her siblings snooping. So one thing she didn't say in this, but that I've heard many times is, I have a right to privacy. You're invading my privacy. That's another one. Very similar to, you're invading my space. Those are my personal feelings. So the mom goes on. She says, my plan is to read her journal, evaluate its contents, and go from there. I'm struggling with feelings of guilt. Okay, right there. That is the first indicator mom is going into distortion. She's going into guilt. And here's two reasons why this is distorted. One is guilt is a principle of truth. Guilt is what invokes and is a catalyst for repentance. Guilt is what brings us to change. Now, repentance and change is going from a state of being in distortion to going into truth. The mom's in truth. The mom has not gone into distortion. The mom has not broken principles. The daughter has. It's the daughter who needs to change. It's the daughter who needs to repent. And so guilt in truth, and a lot of people say guilt when really they're talking about distortion or shame, but guilt is only possible when a person has broken principles of truth, when they have gone into self-deception and they feel remorse about it. They feel sorrow about it. And they truly don't want to be dishonest again. They don't want to be irresponsible. They don't want to continue in their pride. They want to humble. So this mom is using guilt in a very distorted way. So she says, I can't help but feel like I am invading her space. I'm extremely nervous about the contents of this journal and fear I'm acting in distortion. I'm basically burying my head in the sand. Yes, this is fear coming in. Your daughter has been sneaking around the house, sending her siblings in to find the journal. She's been manipulating you. She has been deceptive. She's been throwing this big tantrum. And so now you're going, ooh, you're letting her distortion trigger your distortion. And you can't do that, mom, and be in truth. When your child goes into distortion, your job is to stand firm in truth and say, you are having an experience and you are responding in distortion. And I'm going to watch you. And I'm going to investigate. And I am going to take note. And I am going to get curious. What you don't do is go into distortion with her, which is where you're wanting to go here. I'm nervous about what I could find out about my daughter in the journal, and I'm even more afraid, so here's her biggest fear, I will permanently damage our trust by even investigating this. Sometimes you just have a feeling, though. Yes, moms, sometimes you do just have a feeling. That is your gut, and your gut is very, very on. Your gut is absolutely on. Now, I want to look at your fear of permanently damaging the trust in your relationship with your daughter. Trust is a principle of truth, and there are certain elements that build trust. So the base is always honesty, responsibility, and humility. Those are your 3 legs on your stool. So you've got, think of, I happen to have one right here. It's a 3-legged stool. It's a little side table. And think of each of these legs as a pillar of support. And one is honesty, one is responsibility, and one is humility. Then you have safety. You can stand on this and it's really sturdy. You can sit on this, it's really sturdy. It's going to hold the weight of a relationship. And then you have trust. You can build trust on top of that safety. And each person in the relationship shows up being honest, responsible, and humble, and with a long pattern of safety. You're the mother and she is the child. This is not a relationship where you trust her. That's not your job as a mother. In fact, your job as a mother is to constantly be scrutinizing her, to constantly be judging her choices against principles. That's your job. If you begin to trust your daughter, you're going to go blind to all of the distortions in her life. And now she's not safe. So my husband, he has spent quite a bit of time at the U.S. Military Academy, West Point. And I don't know how many of you are familiar with West Point. It is one of the safest places you can be in the world. And they have strict boundaries and there is no privacy. No privacy. Why? Because privacy can be used in distortion. And so my husband went and visited and they took out his bags, they took out his contents, they patted him down. Think of going through the TSA only times 10. Now, I don't want you to hear the control makes you safe. That is not what I'm hoping you hear. What I'm hoping you hear is that you're building a place in your home that is nurturing, that is predictable, that is safe, that your daughter knows how you're going to show up consistently over and over and over again. Privacy has been used today greatly to hide and to sneak and to be deceptive. Privacy can be used in truth. I have 4 walls in my bedroom, and that gives me a place of privacy. I have 4 walls in the bathroom. That gives privacy. When my child begins using those 4 walls to do things that are deceptive, they lose the privilege of privacy. Why? Because they're not concerned about privacy. That is the last thing they're concerned about. They're just trying to hold that word over your head. They're trying to hold you hostage, saying, you need to give me privacy. You need to honor my boundaries. You need to honor my feelings. You don't care about me. What else? You're invading my space. Those are my personal feelings. No. In this home, you don't get personal space because this is my space because I'm the parent. If you want your own personal space, you'll need to get your own space. This is mine. And as long as you're living in my home, it is my job to know everything about you. You don't get to sneak. You don't get to hide. You don't get to have secrets. Not in my house. Do you see how loving that is? Now, if you're in distortion, you're reeling right now. If you're in distortion, you're ready to pull your hair out right now. You're ready to scream. So think about how that feels in your system as you hear me say it. If a child is in truth, they won't have any problem with that. Okay, got it. That makes sense. They're not going to have any qualms about what I've just said because they're not hiding anything. Because privacy really is appreciated and they can be in their room and they can have 4 walls on a bathroom, and they can have a journal. And those who are being deceptive, there's no hiding place. So it's just a great rule of thumb that in my house, there is no such thing as privacy. You're expected to be honest. You're expected to be responsible, and you're expected to be humble about it and not carry a chip on your shoulder about it. That's your responsibility as a child. So truth stands alone. Truth can be scrutinized. Truth says, ask me all the questions you want, look in all the corners, open up the drawers, here's my backpack, here's my purse, here's my phone. And I hope they don't have a phone. But they are open to you scrutinizing them. And it's not because they've done a bang-up job of hiding things. It's because they know there's nothing there. They know they're being honest. This mother says, side note, my daughter does not have a cell phone due to previous bad behavior in the past. To make a long story short, she was caught having extremely graphic and inappropriate conversations with a 19-year-old neighbor. It is as bad as you imagine. Oh. And she's 14. Last year she was 13. That is illegal. This occurred a year ago, and since then, we have been actively working to unlearn this trauma. All right here, the mom is wanting to combine with the daughter because she says, we are working to unlearn this trauma. Now, this is a really traumatic experience. This is a 13-year-old girl last year, a 14-year-old girl this year, who has been, if she says it's as bad as I can imagine, that there's been sexual, that's child pornography and exploitation. That is a really, really big deal. And the mom's responsibility in this is to get centered herself and not to go into distortion with this, but to stay firm and strong inside principles and to hold her daughter accountable, which it sounds like she's been doing a good job. And she still is feeling this pull that she wants to trust her daughter. And the sad news is that your daughter isn't trustworthy. You cannot trust someone who is not trustworthy. So the best thing that you can do is to invite her into principles of truth, and maybe down the road when she's an adult and she has shown years and years of consistent safety, then you'll have some trust with her. And right now that is not the issue. Don't get distracted with what you want. I recently took the leap into connections, and I plan on committing more within the next 2 to 3 months after the birth of my child. So you have a baby on the way. She says, any words of advice are much appreciated. Thank you dearly from the bottom of my heart for this wonderful space. Oh, you sweet mother, you sweet mother. I'm so glad to hear that you're getting into connections and that you're diving right in. I would love to have you get connected with our community and start talking to women who will be able to support you. And where you can go and do your venting or do your, express your emotions. Now here I'm going to share with you a truthful use of privacy. Mom, you need to be able to express your emotions and feelings in the privacy of a very safe group of women. So then you just show up as a stalwart soldier to your daughter, not because you're cold, not because you're controlling, not because you're a machine, but because she needs a standard that doesn't move. The reason my husband felt safe at West Point is because he knew they didn't move. If someone tries to sneak a weapon onto West Point, they're either shot or they go to prison. Those are the outcomes. And the outcomes are big enough that nobody, rarely does anyone ever try to sneak a weapon. I had a neighbor who was also a West Point professor, and he told me all kinds of stories of his students over the years. And they have a very specific dress code, very specific. Certain days you wear, or if you're a certain year, you wear certain clothing items. And this, I don't know if I should call him cadet or student, he showed up and he wasn't wearing the correct uniform. And he got kicked out. He left. They didn't want to keep him. And it's not about the clothes. It's not about he wore the wrong uniform. And it's not about, well, he snuck a weapon onto campus. That's not what it's about. This campus, this academy understands if you're willing to be dishonest here on campus, you are a liability on the war front. You are dangerous, not because you have a weapon in your pocket, but because you are willing to be deceptive. That makes you dangerous. Can you hear the difference? Someone who's willing to be deceptive is much, much, much more dangerous than someone who just has a weapon in their pocket. So this mom, you are seeing clearly. You are seeing accurately. This is not about what's in her journal. You may read her journal and all it says is, I like daisies and my favorite ice cream is moose tracks. I mean, you might find nothing in her journal. And I hope that you don't go, oh, phew. Oh, it's not as bad as I thought. It is as bad as you think because she's acting in all kinds of control. And I don't know where that would be. That is your job to scrutinize and find out where that is. And that's why I'm so glad you're getting some support. It is really rare to find truthful support who will validate parents holding their children accountable. It's very rare. And I'm so glad that we have this platform where it is safe for moms and dads to share what is going on in their home and get accurate, truthful reality reflected back to them and to get a lot of validation. Thank you.